Let's have it.
Well, hey. So how's it going there, people listening? We have folks in Australia that have been welcomed to the community of Frame of Reference coming together. I'm Raul LaBrush. That's Raul like Raul, or as my friend Antoine Pullman Sr. here calls me, I am the Fresh LaBrush. So
Raul the Fresh LaBrush.
I think I'm going to have to just put that on a shirt or something. You're in the presence of the Fresh LaBrush. So
you know what, man? I'm gonna get you a T-shirt made just with Raul the Fresh LaBrush, and it's gonna be in b-boy style, like in '80s breakdancing graffiti, man. I got you on that.
I can see all the brothers going, "What's with that, man, dude? What's it? We got some weird white bread going on down there, man." So okay,
bro, I got you on that, and I'm gonna take a picture right by your side with it on, man. I got you on that.
I love that. This has just been a great day so far. I mean, we're just all of a sudden I'm finding out there's all these blessings coming down from heaven. So, Antoine, how you doing, man?
Man, all is well, man. I just give God glory for the day and just life, health, and strength. And I just thank him for another day, man. That's where I'm at. Just giving him glory, man. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So those of you that, are listening or maybe even watching the podcast now that we're trying to record it. But we have we have a real impromptu kind of relationship, right? It's not like we've got a production crew in the background. We'd like to, but we don't have a production group in the background that's going, okay, we're going to resource with this, blah, 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 write a bunch of notes. Like the John Stewarts of the world, man, they got it so good because there's all these people, executive producers that are doing all this legwork. So all the star has to do is show up and, be aware of things and be able to be intelligent enough to grapple with things. But a lot of that legwork is done. Well, we're a bunch of homeschool kids here and just trying to make by with what we can. So Antoine and I usually just have a text or two to each other during the course of the week and say, hey, what do you want to talk about this week? And it's like, I don't know, about pizza. No, we talked about pizza 6 months ago, whatever. So
because it's just like you, I love that, man. It's like, so anybody out there listening, hey, we love your sponsorship, and of course, to get that production crew in the background and just, but also just, again, we want to make this more structured and just make it better for you.
Yeah. Well, and so the subject today came up as a topic that was something like 7 o'clock this morning. I get a text from Antoine, and I'm thinking to myself, what are we going to talk about as well? But he sends a note and said, hey, brother, can we talk about Evandale, Ohio? So, and I'm like, yeah, sure. And then he said, Evandale, and waving white Nazi flags in a black neighborhood. I'm what? So I had not heard of the thing at all. So, of course, I felt like a stupid white guy. Not uncommon for me, but, in this case, I'm like, why do I not even know anything about this? I started to do a research, like Googling it, just on Evansdale, Ohio. I figured, it would come up right away. No, it's like, welcome to Evansdale, Ohio, home of the beautiful people. It's all that kind of nonsense. But then if I put Evansdale and Nazis, then there were multiple news reports and, TV things that had been done at the time. Come to find out, this is something that just happened in early February, and if you don't mind, I'll just give my quick of it is so apparently a small group of Nazis, neo-Nazis, as they're calling themselves, I guess, show up on this bridge and over a pass in between Evandale and, is it Lincoln Heights? That's
Lincoln Heights. Yep.
Lincoln Heights. So Lincoln Heights is a historically black neighborhood that's been a black neighborhood since the 20s, right?
A suburb of Cincinnati. Yep.
Choosing that bridge that's right in between Evansdale, which is more of a white class, I guess, whatever you want to call it, kind of a normal. I think they're both suburbs of Cincinnati, if I was reading that right. So here we got this group that decides to put up Nazi flags on the overpass, and they show pictures of these guys putting up their flags, and they've got like the skull mask thing on where their eyes are, normal ski masks, but then the top of it looks like, something out of Venom and Spider-Man kind of deal. So really obviously wanting to intimidate people. Another shot of guys like with a semi-automatic rifle, so these were people that were there to really send a message into a black neighborhood, right? We are here. And the thing that struck me really clearly about it too was the people from the black neighborhood that talked about it said they didn't even know that the Nazis were there. It was their children that came to them and said, Mom, Dad, there's Nazis on the bridge. So, of course, the parents, as parents, are thinking, what is going on? And they're outraged because their kids are afraid. Who wouldn't be, right? Who wouldn't be afraid that all of a sudden these guys with these masks show up that have got guns and are putting Nazi flags on the bridge around your neighborhood? Who wouldn't be afraid? So that's kind of the gist of the whole thing. And I didn't have time to look at a lot more of it. There was body cam footage that was available to people. There's some issues going on there, too, because some of the cops didn't have their body cams on, which is not supposed to happen ever. And then there was another guy whose Jeep had gotten the tires slashed on it, and he needed help getting back to his Jeep because his service dog was in it. And, there was a lot of outrage over, what are you doing helping these guys? I don't get it, because one of the officers helped him to get back to his car. So it's this whole convoluted mess because these people that, are exercising their freedom of speech came in a completely stupid and senseless and hateful way into this neighborhood to upset people and just to show that they could do it. And it's like, Trump and the Zelensky or something, for goodness sakes. They're sitting there just, shoving their you-know-what in people's faces because they can. And you ought to know what a big he-man I am because I can do this to you and you can't stop me. We gotta grow up, man. We gotta figure out how to get these people back on track because this is Clockwork Orange in a big way.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and again, it's like this thing is so bothersome because of course, this is what and I relate it again, man. It's white supremacy, man. It's the wrong thing. Of course, like historically, like say these neo-Nazi groups. KKK, white supremacist groups, they cloak themselves in the First and Second Amendment, right? Mm-hmm. They say, "Oh, we got the right to free speech," but again, it's like they're just spreading these racist or supremacist ideologies. But the thing is, this is where it becomes a hateful thing because it's like, then of course, with this incident in mind, of course, the first part of it was the response by the police. Like you said, a lot of them didn't have their body cams on, and then again it was just this, they're just here peacefully protesting. But you got to look at the context, you got to look at the bigger picture here. Why? Because they were trying to relate it to when Black Lives Matter protested. Look at where they protested. They went to city and state capitals and things like that. These people went to the doorstep of a black community. Black Lives Matter and those other kind of things. They were protesting systemic racial issues, right? Racial, social, economic injustices and things like that. These people went to a doorstep of a black community to protest them, saying that we are against you. Because they could have did this anywhere in the city or the state. They chose to go. It's all about provocation, right? Again, it's like you have a marginalized community, you go and provocate, and then you try to agitate. And then, of course, and some of these guys they try to intimidate as well, because some of these white supremacists had guns. But I guess a lot of people may forget, just like they forgot that, a lot of people figured, the Project 2025 doesn't only relate to certain people. The Second Amendment, it relates to black people as well. And so a lot of black people, like they showed the neo-Nazis are brandishing their guns. A lot of black people showed their guns. And of course, I guess Ohio is an open carry state or right to carry, or is one of those states. Right. And so it's like it kind of, again, that could have turned really bad really fast. But again, it was all about the police response. And of course, and it's kind of questionable, again, the whole situation. But it's like, why did you choose to do your protest on a doorstep of a black community? And like you said in your opening, it wouldn't even been known except for the children. Yeah. Now, and again, this white supremacist intimidation type of thing, look at what it psychologically does to the children. Because, again, that's where the historical systemic racism, it always, you hurt the adult, or you minimize the accomplishment of the adult, or you put the adult in a threatened state, and watch how the children respond. And so, but again, it's like, you don't fight fire with fire. You don't, we don't be overcome by evil, but we overcome evil with good. And of course, even though, like say, the black residents, they came out and showed their guns too. Hey, I just figured, hey, you can have your gun. You just don't have to show it. You can speak. We can fight the right way. But again, this was just an incident to provoke that community into something else. Again, they come with guns. They come waving a flag at the doorstep of a predominantly black community, or it was actually a pretty mixed community. Right. When you're talking about Lincoln Heights and Evandale. But again, that choice of location was strictly for provocational reasons.
I like how you've said that too before. They provocate, they agitate, and then they incarcerate. So
yep.
I think that's such a. I never thought of that before you said that. I thought that's exactly what happens. They provocate, they agitate. People all riled up because when you see those videos, you'll hear those people are agitated. The police have got their police line formed around. People are agitated, and by getting that agitated, they're ending up. They know exactly what they're doing. They get those guys so agitated that they end up inciting them to the point of anger, where they do things that are going to end up regretting. But they have to try to restrain themselves, and that just makes it more difficult. And then ultimately, if they don't restrain themselves in reaction to this horrible thing, they get incarcerated. Right. So, yep. And I guess what I'm here to do, and what I think this whole podcast is about, is there's another part of that. We have to be advocates. There's a dire need for people in the center and left to be advocates for no more of this. We got to stop this, because you have a right to speech. You have a freedom of speech. You do not have a freedom to lie. People cannot accept that freedom of speech means the freedom to lie. People can't accept that, because if you accept that my freedom of speech enables me to lie with freedom as well, then what are courts for? Right? Because courts are all about, if you lie in court, you're in big, serious trouble. That's called contempt. that can put you in jail faster than the crime that you committed, that you're there in trial for, is to lie when you're in court. So why do we think that our freedom of speech should include freedom to lie? And the other part of the equation is, we have hate speech laws, right? We have rules that we have established that say you cannot incite violence among people by doing things that are going to make one group of people hate more vehemently another group of people for an agenda that is usually politically in purpose, or some sort of gain is involved in making that hate speech. That's not supposed to happen. So we have hate speech laws on there, but they're not enforced. So what are you going to do in a country where the rule of law is both being completely ignored, and it's also being stretched? Because I think at the end of the day, there's money to be made. There is money to be made in allowing this stuff to foment. There's money to be made in everything from the people that provide the food services for prisons. I mean, that's you want to talk about something that's eye-opening. Look at how much money is generated for companies that do nothing but provide the food services for prisons. Big money, okay? Or is it the money that's made from, advertising on all these shows that love to make a big deal of? Because I can guarantee you Newsmax, who's, Antoine's talking about, would be covering these stories completely differently than CNN or MSNBC. But even there, oh man, that MSNBC, I can't even think about them without thinking about the hirings and firings that they've been doing lately. Two of the people that were people of color that had, pod or shows on MSNBC were let go all of a sudden. And now Rachel Maddow, who spoke out against it, ended up losing a bunch of her staff. So, MSNBC, that has this, reputation of being so liberal.
They fired Joy Reid.
Yeah, Joy Reid. Thank you. I couldn't think of her. And there was another one that hired, because Joy Reid, I remembered seeing her newscast, especially during like the elections, because she was the only one really talking about a lot of the issues going on underneath the surface. But there's another. Is it another woman that was also let go that had a show as well?
Well, people that openly, really overly, well, I wouldn't even say overly, but just outwardly criticize Trump, that he got fired or let go by MSNBC, Joy Reid. Prior to Joy Reid, there was Tiffany Cross,
Okay.
and then there was another black woman that was fired even before her. But also in this current purge of it at MSNBC, Katie Fang, who was I would say Asian descent, a woman of color, she was let go as well.
Okay.
But again, the other people still stand. And you made a great point. Just talking about it's going to take advocacy and allyship to really overcome. Because again, what happened in Ohio, it's a stance in white supremacy. And of course, we know the history of it simply is just, hey, the ideology that white people are superior to all other races, basically. And of course, and that's where we have to really come and make a stance. And then, of course, like you're talking off camera, how you're rereading white fragility. Yeah. And I think that's a great thing, man, because again, it's like we have to, as a country, we don't want to we have to learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's where we don't want, and again, that inward look at ourselves. What can I do more? What can I say? And it's like, and again, it's like, we got to get over fear. Of course, like people, like, again, all these things stem from fear, man. Of course, these white supremacists and these people that are in higher government, they all, what is that thing? Where they feel like they're losing the country, where they feel like the whiteness of the country is going away. I can't remember the term exactly. Okay. Oh my goodness. It'll come back to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just like they feel like they're losing the country. They feel like, and so now we see these things being openly done in this current government. Of course, you see it, and it's plain as day. But, when we're talking about advocacy, right, it's going to have to be a multifaceted, approach. It's going to have to come through education, policy reforms. It's going to have to come through community engagement. When we talk about the educational parts or the initiative on that, we have to dismantle these stereotypes, promote more cultural understanding, and highlight the contributions of marginalized people. That way, people, again, because they're whitewashed, that's how you basically erase. You minimize the accomplishments of a people and say, oh, they don't matter. The policy reforms, we have to really, like you said, there's hate crime laws and things like that on the books. The anti-discriminatory laws, they have to be enforced. We have to promote equitable access to resources, which we see are being cut off. And and then we have to just ensure the right representation of marginalized groups, black communities, Asian, Hispanic, again, because again, with the gerrymandering, you take out the representation. And then the community engagement, we have to learn to coalesce, man. Like it's going to take all of us to bring in the solidarity, and we have to just amplify the efforts to counteract hate and bigotry, man. And we have to have we got to fight for the inclusion. We got to have more dialogue. We got to dismantle the structures that sustain white supremacy. We have to break them down, again, starting with that education piece.
All right. So I'm going to make two different points here, and this can go wherever it wants to. But you alluded to a couple books that I just started reading again. I'm notorious. I've got 100 and some books in my Kindle that I keep getting them. I used to collect physical books, but I had to worry about where I was going to get a second house to be able to store my books in. So I started doing the Kindle thing, right? And two of them that have been on the top of my list for a while now are one by Robin DiAngelo called White Fragility, and the other one is by should look this up quick so I don't. Paul Moore, I believe is the man's name, or no, it's Paul Mason. Paul Mason called How to Stop Fascism. So, and Robin DiAngelo, I'll just say briefly, the White Fragility book was spawned from her having been someone that did a lot of diversity training classes. I believe she's a professor too at UW-Madison. I may be remembering that incorrectly, but anyway, I think there's a Wisconsin connection somewhere to her. But I thought she was it was really interesting because she said she went through years literally of trying to do these diversity training sessions, and the white people in the audience were just like either like really uncomfortable and like not wanting, to look, or they were like a couple instances she talked about people that, would get really angry and throw their, stuff, their notebook down the table when they came in. And one guy, as she's starting to talk, pounds his fist on the table and says, "The problem is white people can't get a job," and she was really intimidated by that sort of anger that would come into the groups. But over time, she began to realize that there's this issue of white fragility. And one of the basic premises of it is, and I'd have to agree, that white people are just uncomfortable talking about racism. We see it as a binary thing. If you're racist, you're bad. I'm not a bad person. So racism must be something that has to do with other people than me. So there's kind of this fundamental understanding there with white people where the minute you start talking about racism and you have to acknowledge the fact that, am I a racist? No, I'm not a racist. I would never do the things that racists do. But let's look at the number of things that are systemically in our culture, in our education, in our systems that are racist, that have racist roots to them, and have never been identified as that. And if you don't want to believe that that's true, why did school board meetings literally lose their shit? Because people were so uptight about this whole critical race theory thing, right? Which anyone that knows anything about critical race theory will tell you that it is not being taught in schools. There is no critical race theory subject line in a textbook anywhere in a public school that I am aware of. If you can find one, please let me know. Texas is listening, maybe, I don't know. Florida, you might be aware of something that you had to ban. So, anyways, the point I'm making with that is critical race theory is taught at the graduate level. It's a methodology, it's a philosophy, it's just a course of study that asks a question about our culture, our education, our systems, and are there roots of racism still in there that are being cultivated, nurtured, furthered, because those systems haven't been addressed and reprogrammed, reevaluated, realigned, right? So that's all part of the problem, that we've got to recognize the fact that we're all racists. We're in a racist soup. To say that we are not racists in America is absolute hogwash, bullshit, Taurus manuras, because there's just no way to not be. And if you don't want to embrace that and understand how you are, because that's the other thing she notices, that there are so many moderate white people, and I have to say myself included, right, where we're so interested in proving to people that we're not racist. And, see, I have black friends. I do a podcast with a black guy. I'm a good white person, right? All this nonsense takes away energy from things like Evandale, right? Takes away from joining up with the black leadership of Lincoln Heights and saying, let's go to the sheriff's meeting that they're having today with the press, and let's ask some really specific questions about what's being done to get that camera footage. What's being done to those officers that turned off their body cameras? How are we going to make sure that doesn't keep happening? Because when these things happen, there's conversations and things going on there that we as a public need to be aware of, so we can be sure that our law enforcement hasn't been infiltrated by people that really are serious racists at heart. Like maybe the guy that got killed George Floyd, maybe. Anyways, so then the other point is Paul, forgot his name already, Mason. Paul Mason's book, he talks about fascism. And he made an incredible statement that I think ties to all of this. He said, there's a demand for a definitive statement about what fascism is, and he defines it as fascism is the fear of freedom triggered by a glimpse of freedom. And think about that for a second. It's the violent mobilization of people who do not want to be free around the project of destroying freedom. It is, as the Italian anti-fascist Enzo Traverso wrote, it is a revolution against the revolution. And there's so much packed into that when you think about what is happening in America right now. Why is the fascist movement, why is a fascist man in the office of the presidency right now? Because there was a fear of the freedom that we were starting to recognize, that we were just starting to get a glimpse of in a country of America where we have a statue, a freaking statue when you come in to America that says, give me your tired, your poor, your wretched refuse yearning to be free. We had just a little bit of time there around COVID where we got the sense that that's kind of a good thing we should do that. You know, we ought to be that. And we could be that. Why don't we do that? And it got disrupted by COVID. And then it got disrupted by the people that were afraid of it. They are just shitting in their pants afraid of it, because it's going to mean that they're going to have to drop a whole bunch of nonsense that they've been taught for a long time. And I'm struggling with the answer to it, folks. As much as I hated and loved the movie Clockwork Orange, and if you've ever seen it, don't watch it with your kids anywhere near. It's a horrible, horrible movie, but the message of it is clear. Violence is not the answer, and their technique for getting rid of violence ends up being more violent. And it's just, so it's the never-ending cycle of human violence against humans. And, where does it ever end? That's the big problem I have with the film. But, because Hollywood always has to turn things into something they never should be, or could be. Anyways, so all that's tied together, right? Why are there things going on that wasn't shown to the rest of the country? Why did they keep that broadcast in Evandale? Because they're afraid. They don't want that stuff getting out to the larger masses. They don't want people in Wisconsin finding out and being able to actually operate on the stupidity that was going on there. It's the horrible thing is I saw in those videos there were police officers trying to do the right thing. They were trying to defuse the situation. I want to believe they were trying to do what they could to keep people safe. But then there were others that turned their cameras off. So how do we know what they were doing? And will we ever know until it's too late? Because if they were actually fomenting, if they were figuring out a way to help those guys and saying, yeah, you know what, you probably should call this off for today, but let's look at, how about March 18th? Does that work for coming back with a bigger group that'll be harder to disperse? Because I believe this whole thing is a reconnaissance party more than anything. It's like, I agree. You send people out, that are going to just let's troll the waters and see where the fish are. And if we can't, to your point, and make an excellent point, this was not done at a Capitol. This was not, some group trying to say we've got a valid point here and we want to make sure people hear it. This was people coming to the doorstep and saying, we're here.
And we got to look at and that, man, that's awesome, man. And just look at they're getting their example from the head of state, right? Yeah. Of course, all these executive orders just to push the limits, to see what I can get away with, to see what I can be done, to even, like you say, test the waters, that reconnaissance, right? Okay, if this is how they'll respond if I do this. Because again, this whole thing, man, it goes back to the beginning. At its core, is all about these people. They do these things. They cloak themselves in the First and Second Amendment, and it's all about preserving their social, political, economic structures that privilege, to exercise their privilege. Mm-hmm. And again, it's like going back, what you said something previously, it's remember how we talk about in previous conversations a bit, when we talk about Black history, we talk about things of Blackness. It's not about making white people feel guilty. It's not about making children feel guilty or anything. But, of course, that, fragility piece, of course, it's like, because look at it this way, there are certain groups of people that want to do this thing. Again, there's just groups of people that want to feel like that, hey, white people should dominate society. That's their belief. Everybody else is inferior. But however, like say people that don't have that kind of hate in their heart, that don't have that thought or even thought process, the guilt comes in. It's like, wow, I've enjoyed this whiteness. I've enjoyed this, and it's like I can't speak for any white person, but it's like white supremacists make other white people feel guilty of enjoying their whiteness, but that's not my point of view. But now it's like, okay, hey, most white people, you say, hey, okay, I don't agree with this. Now, to your point, it's like, what do we do next? What do we do next? We know the history. We know the definition. We know the ideology. We know we know the tactics. So now what do we do?
Right. Well, I know Paul Mason makes a really conclusive point regularly, and I'll know more. I promise I will read more by the time we talk about this again. But one of the things he says that has to happen, where the only time we're successful in fighting fascism is when the center of a political spectrum and a group of people unites with the left. That the far right and the far left, they're just not going to be able to have the wherewithal or the whatever. I don't know if the brain just gets too wired up on dopamine or whatever to be able to do thing, or cortisone, I guess would be in that case. Or don't worry about that. Get the people that are centralized and the people that are on the left side of the equation that have that liberal progressive thinking, and then the people that are on the center, they're like, whoa, wait a minute, let's think about this a little bit more, okay? And stresses the fact that everybody's not going to get what they want, exactly, right? There's going to have to be some compromises, but the big topics, the big things of, is this right for one group of people to do this? Is it right to have a social media platform where people can lie blatantly about things, and cause the kind of foment and turmoil that causes, because they have the right to free speech, but they have no responsibility for using that free speech in a truthful way. I think that's where you draw the line with free speech. You want to say things, either back them up with reality, or be willing to defend why you're saying what you're saying, because otherwise it's just irresponsible, and that there's no place for that anymore. You have too many ways to counter it. And the other thing I think that's really important, he talks about not only having that like centralization of things, but he talks about like parades and how we allow people to be in parades in uniforms that are designed to strike power or strike fear in people because of the coalition that they have. And I thought of that with these guys that were on the bridge, because they were all in black. They were, so black, they basically look like commandos, with their vests on and then having those masks on. That was a uniform, right? And it was a uniform that was picked out by those guys because they wanted to instill fear. They wanted to basically say, don't mess with us, right?
And that's a great point, because if you look at that swastika, it wasn't in white, it was in red. Yeah. That's one thing I you have to point out. It's like that thing was in red, meaning there's bloodshed to come, or that's the threatening of, Right. And of course, but again, it's like those whole things, man. They try to normalize these extremist views, and basically just tears down the values of equity and justice, and of course the resurgence of white supremacy groups, and that whole ideology thing like that is just, they're trying to make their influence known by saying it loud, saying it often, and which could make it true. And of course, these things are influencing a lot of young Americans. Either they're trying to instill fear into people of color, or they're actually trying to train up and raise up young white people. And the sad part is, again, they criticize those that say, hey, I want to know more about Black history. And so they call them woke, or whatever you want to call them. Again, just simply because they want to know the history. They want to say, hey, before we completely shut the door, before we go off repeating a matter, let's learn more. And they get criticized for it. And that's where it's like the threatening and like these marches to show strength in certain environments and situations is just to intimidate. And that's where, again, with the advocacy part, the allyship is so important these days, man. Because again, this thing, everything happening in the country is getting, now the marching orders are coming from the top. Of course, the rollback of DEI initiatives, they're basically just the cutting off of all resources that would benefit minorities. Yeah. The immigration, voting rights, affirmative action. It's just perpetuating they're just continuously perpetuating these white supremacist, ideologies. And again, it's like we have to have the education, the policy reform, and the community engagement. And we just, and this is just, not just white people, but all people. We just cannot be fearful. Of course, these people, like they shout loud, they threaten, they see, this is the thing. People hate what they can't control. And what they can't control, they criticize. When the criticism doesn't work, they start to threaten. And when the threatening part doesn't work, they want to turn a simple disagreement into some form of disrespect. And then when they get to that point, that's when they can kind of justify the action that they take, because of what their original thought is, that I'm better than you. And that's where we have to just really just say, okay, we can no longer, we have to come together and really create safe spaces for some very some hard candor and some actions to take place, to just go against these discords that are trying to be perpetuated, these narratives that are trying to be created, and it's like when we take a stance on these things the right way, taking a stance on them the right way is the key. I preached on this in my love message last Sunday, love that overcomes hate, and it's just simply, we have to learn to fight with the right heart's posture. Yes, we can gather, we can do these things, but again, the enemy's whole trick and tactic is to take your heart out of the right posture with God, so you're fighting evil with evil, and that's what we're not called to do. And the scary part is, we continue to do this, and so, but again, the threatening part comes out, and this is where again is we have to coalesce, and we have to coalesce quickly and do it the right way. I don't know if you are aware, but in Black communities, yesterday was Friday. We had it was called a blackout, where Black people in the United States said we're not spending a single dollar.
We did it too. We did it too. Yay!
Okay.
We were on our board. Economic blackout. Cool.
And there's more things like that. Black people. Every place that has been recognized as supporting this administration, we are going against. Like the canceling of Amazon Prime. And of course, people are like, because again, there's like maybe 7 or 8 companies that are the parent company to everything else in the United States. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's like in those things, there are so many layers. You don't know who owns what, but you have to do the research, So like, again, when these things come to light, we just say, hey, we're not going to give you our money so you can support a person that wants to minimize our accomplishments, that wants to, really hurt us. And so that's where, we, again, the education piece, the policy reform piece, the community engagement piece, and then again, just when we can get to that space, create some spaces for some dialogue and some action.
Amen. Yeah, I keep thinking this phrase, fascism is the fear of freedom triggered by the glimpse of freedom. You think about how many things are going on right now. The attacks on transgender folks. I've had arguments with friends of mine that are, Christians, pastors or whatnot. And my question with all that is, I get that you have a moral stance on that. All right. That's been socialized into you, trained into you through studies. But really, seriously, why can't we just love each other? What's wrong with, okay, so this person's already struggling with their gender identity, okay? Something we didn't even, talk about, gender identity. Well, you're a guy, you're a girl, that's it. It's much more nuanced than that when you start talking about gender, right? So why can't we allow for that? So, we had a glimpse of the freedom of what happens when people have the freedom to explore that. I've had the glimpse of freedom of what I could be like without being a racist. And what racism really looks like, the freedom to understand that, a glimpse of what that looks like. And it's terrifying, when you start to realize, oh my God, all these things I thought I did that showed I wasn't a racist. Yeah, but I didn't show I was anti-racist. It didn't show that, I was willing to confront my own racism as it existed today and work alongside people that were thinking the same thing. those glimpses of freedom of what happened when, the black community started to raise up and said, no more George Floyd's, Black Lives Matter. Here in our little Sauk Prairie, we had a couple of people that had the audacity to put up a Black Lives Matter flag. One guy in particular that lived on Water Street, one of the main drags in town, had a big Black Lives Matter flag put up, and he took all kinds of shit from people for putting that up, for putting up Black Lives Matter. So you tell me there isn't racism in the world, in our community here up in Wisconsin? What in the world is wrong with that? I mean, guys putting up a thing that's saying, we've still got signs in people's yards that say, I kneel at the church, at the cross and stand for the flag. And it's like, what? What does that have to do with anything beyond some stupid rhetoric that somebody came up with to try to keep you agitated? Right? Because when black players were kneeling at games, that wasn't about disrespecting the flag. That was actually a cry for being a better America. It's like, so.
And again, it's like when you protest or when you disagree with a thing, they try to make disagreement into disrespect.
Yeah.
That was a perfect example. And it's like when you try to do that, you get away from the primary focus of the thing. It's called deflection, right?
Yeah.
You deflect from the main topic of, hey, I'm protesting. We want a better governmental system, education, we want social justice, we want equal rights, we want all these different things. But yet when we take a stance, again, it's turned into disrespect. And then, of course, when a person feels disrespected, there's two ways they can come about it. They can say, hey, this is how that made me feel. Or you can actually, you can just invoke the initial response that you want to take because of your basic ideology. It's like, hey, I believe that I'm superior than you, so I'm going to do this. Because like with what we're seeing in this country, it's funny how people, of course, as a pastor, I've been trying to stay out of the political realm. Of course, we know what the Bible says about race and all these different things. However, but lately, I have had to call things out specifically. Like when we talk about Donald Trump, we know historically he's a populist. He's a racist. He exercised all these things throughout his lifetime. This person, he has not exhibited one fruit of the Spirit, but how can all these pastors support him? And again, it goes back to the primary focus. They feel certain groups of people feel that white people are superior than everyone else, because there's just no way a person of sound mind can agree with the policies of this person, because we know his underlying thoughts. We know his whole modus operandi, right? We know what he wants to do. He wants to keep division. And I just want to be straight up honest with this. I believe that, and I hate using this word, but America is being raped and pillaged from within. And I say that because, again, it's like, how can you allow a person, and I'm talking about Elon Musk, how can you allow a person access to some of the most important data of how we pay things and who we pay? Basically, he got the scroll of everybody making everything. And how can you put this in the hands of a person that has direct conversation with Vladimir Putin? How can you put and Elon Musk is the go-between between Trump and Putin. And I believe that, and this is my personal ideology, my personal thought, just over the course of listening to this man, even before he got elected, the Obama administration warned him that, hey, there's a Russian collusion within your organization. But again, they fought it. But now, and we see in real time, he voted with Russia at the United Nations. And then we saw what happened in the White House the other day. They ambushed that poor man in that. But again, it's like people that have supported him, they know who he is. And then, of course, like they'll say, I'm all about economy and I'm all about immigration. That is just the facade of saying that you like how you want things to be a certain way, but you can't. And that's my personal belief, of course. And I feel like, Trump is deliberately trying to kill this country, and everybody that voted with him is an accessory to murder.
Yeah.
That's my. Yeah.
I think there is a different country that he is hoping to become, and it will be based on principles of fear and greed.
And they're trying to, they're trying to do this before next 4th of July at the 250th year of, United States birthday, so to speak. They're trying to implement a lot of horrible things prior to that. And so this is where, we've seen in the first 2 months of his presidency, what is happening.
Right.
And we are in for a fight. We just have to fight with the right heart's posture. We have to create spaces for dialogue and action. That way, us in society can actually come working together towards dismantling these structures that are in place. And we have to come together.
Down, right? The gauntlet has been thrown down. And look for things. I mean, it's as simple, I think, as going to your town board meetings, going to your school board meetings. Just get informed about what's going on. There are organizations. We're so blessed in this area, and we have an organization that does nothing but try to meet the needs of the poor folks in our area. They have a circles ministry, and the organization is called 6-8. And it's basically has all different arms. They work out of the same building as the food pantry. They have a circles ministry where they're basically trying to take the lowest 10% of population.
I believe that's John and Sarah.
Yeah, John and Sarah Ramtham. Call out to John or Sarah Ramtham, two of the finest people you'll ever meet. And just trying to do those little things. Well, there's all kinds of things you can volunteer to do to help with 6-8's projects. So there are places where you can get involved and just start finding out. There's a wonderful organization out of Madison with Fountain of Life, I believe, is the church that Pastor Alex G runs. There's an organization. He does a thing called Justified Anger, and it's basically teaching Black history to white allies. So it's a white ally building program. And my daughter got through it, said, "Dad, you need to take it." I took it, ended up being a facilitator for one session. She's been a facilitator like 4 or 5 times now. And it's so cool to see white people kind of having the veil taken off and just realizing that, man, what is going on, and recognizing that, here in Wisconsin, we think we've got this great thing going. We have the largest incarceration rate for Black people in the entire country in Wisconsin. So here we, talk about having that veil pulled from your eyes. One of the things you have to realize is, okay, well, so now let's bring the critical race theory experts, Dr. such and such. Can you help us understand the systematic things that are going on here in Wisconsin, that even though we're a progressive state, this is happening. Oh, and we're a progressive state that just did a majority for Trump, too. Woo. So obviously there's something going on here when we want to bring in, Brad Kimmer or whatever is Shimmer for, a judge that is on Trump's payroll. He's been funded by Elon Musk. So and yet he's all over the place, right? Farms and whatnot. So there are ways we can get involved right away by just getting the veil pulled off. So let's be hands and feet. Like you said, get involved in organizations. First get the education piece, and then again, it's like we talk about community engagement, and then again, that leads to these political reforms, because we see all these laws that are being put in place. Because what we've seen in the country at the top, a lot of this current president, he's put people in charge of the FBI, the CIA, and actually the United States military to do his will. So, there's a preparation for something bad, of course, because remember, in his first administration, he wanted to, deploy the United States military against American citizens. And he was like, no, the generals at the time was like, no, you can't do that. However, he's put in place the people that will not say no to him the next time. Mm-hmm. And this is where we, again, getting involved, because, again, the setup is, again, remember how we were talking in previous weeks? Oh, look at my one hand doing this while the other hand is doing this. And we have to like you said, get the veil off our eyes. Look at we have to
really educate ourselves on the systemic and systematic racism issues that have plagued this country for all these years in all the institutions. And again, just all these theories and narratives that dehumanize people of color. We have to educate ourselves in them and just break down these practices.
Amen. And that's the name of that tune. Huh. Right. So that's advocate. Okay. Let's start a fourth tongue here, or fourth rung of the wheel. Advocate. Wake up, because it's. I know you can't use this kind of language because you're a pastor, but I get away with it periodically because I'm a theater guy. But we are fucked, people. We need to do some serious unfucking. Okay, so let's get to the unfucking. It's just, I'm going to streetwise it because it's just, that's what it is, man. So I'm not sure, at least my brother isn't going, dude, you can't use language like that. So it's just like, because a lot of my Christian friends are going, oh, he said the F word. It's like, yeah, it's a word, okay? It's a word, and sometimes it's the word for what you're trying to say. So anyways, dude, always a pleasure. So good to talk with you, man. Always.
Yeah, and likewise, man. I just looking forward to our next conversation. And again, we're just hoping to get more people involved with this podcast, and let's just start moving the needle on some things.
Yeah,
and,
tell your friends, tell your family, right? So
yep.
Get the word out. And if nothing else, you want to disagree, go right ahead and disagree, man. That's how we're all going to learn, Just please don't be mean about it. There's no reason for meanness. We got enough meanness all around us. Let's be civil and have some discourse. Okay. Let
me just leave with one scripture, man. This is Galatians 3:28. Okay. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is no male or female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. That's the scripture to kill racism right there.
You want to talk about recognizing your own fascism? Get a glimpse of what you look like in Jesus. That'll show you just how much of a fascist you are. So.
Yeah, we called out, man, let's see, I don't want to go back into my sermon, but, of course, when we talk about 1 John 4:20 and 21, that I was talking about how you can't say you love God and hate people, and of course, in that sermon last week, I say go back and watch it, Faith Works Ministries, click on the Love Will Win series, and you'll hear about, where I discuss that particular sermon or that particular scripture, and just talk about how we can't separate our love for God from the love of people. If you say you love God, you got to love people also. But also that particular scripture, it exposes the false prophet.
Yeah.
Because you can't say you love God and hate people. And you can't preach Trump and say you love God. You just can't.
Love God to love people. So
you can't even say you love God unless you're influenced by his own love.
Amen. Amen. All right, I'm Raul Brush, and you, sir, are
Antoine Hallman Sr.
And we are coming together here on Frame of Reference. So take care, everybody. Hope to see you, hear you, be around you next time, next place, or as we used to say when I was a kid, same bad time, same bad channel. So, all right, take care. God bless.
God bless.